Good morning, and welcome to the Rock and Roll Real Estate Hour, starring Gary Rossignol of Berkshire Hathaway Professional Realty. To be part of the program, dial 513-749-1480 to get answers to all your questions about your home and property. The number again, 513-749-1480. And now, here's Gary.
Hey, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the all-new Rock and Roll Real Estate Hour on 1480 WDJO. Sit back and relax. Enjoy our compelling discussions, musical thoughts, and we'll give you a chance to learn something about your home, neighborhood, and community, because I have two very special guests with me in here this morning. I have Karen Schlosser. She is with Comey & Shepard, and I have Dave Mussari. He's with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Professional Realty. Boy, that's a mouthful. But we got it down, Dave. We got it down.
Pay for every word, Gary.
And we'll talk a little bit about that later on in the show. Karen, you're one of the head honchos there at Comey & Shepard, aren't you?
Oh, I like that title, head honcho. Yes. Yes.
That means you clean the kitchen.
I do everything that needs to be done. Yes.
And Dave, you park cars and do the food deliveries.
Absolutely.
And all that.
Yes, I do my share of cleaning as well.
Right.
Yes, of course.
Later on in the show, Rhea Davidson, one of the co-founders of the Dragonfly Foundation, she'll be calling in, giving us an update on what's going on up in the Landing. We've got some exciting things happening with that company. I do have a trivia question, and also if you have a question for me or my guest this morning, call 513-749-1480 anytime during the show. We'll we'll answer questions, right?
Any question.
Any question.
Absolutely.
Anything about real estate, financing, houses, food, restaurants, music.
Sure.
Yeah. We'll give you, we won't know if it's the right answer, but we'll give them an answer.
We'll give them an answer.
We have opinions for sure.
We do.
Our listeners this morning are everyday folks that may want to buy or sell a house, and we got a lot of local realtors tuning in too. So we want to gear our discussions towards that whole audience today. I'd like to take this, trivia question. The second caller that calls in and knows the answer to this question, the first names of the duo, Hall and Oates. You know their first names. You can't call in. You're already here.
I can't call in.
If you know the first names of Hall and Oates, you will win a $25 gift certificate to Rusty's Restaurante. So 749-1480. I'd like to take this moment and express my gratitude to all the active members and the veterans of the armed forces who selflessly give themselves to fight for our nation's freedom. You know, they don't get enough thanks, and if you're out and about and you see someone in their uniform, give them the thank you sign, shake their hands, give them a hug, pick up their tab, let them know we appreciate them and we love them dearly for what they do for us. Speaking of veterans, you know, we have a special benefit for veterans in the finance world, the VA loan. It's zero down.
That's right.
I have I'm not going to say they're a young couple because they spent their entire life. He's retired military. Mm-hmm. He's our age, about ready to retire from his job now, and lived in rent their whole life. So their American dream is like right around the corner. And they contacted me on one of my listings. Mm-hmm. Of course, I represented the seller, and I asked them the right questions, you know. Have you ever bought a house before? Have you been to the bank yet? And they did, and they told me what they were approved for. Well, the house they were calling me on was a lot more than what they could even think about affording. So I agreed to meet with them. They met with me in the office, and we sat down and we talked about everything that you need to talk to about a buyer. Talked about the consumer guide, talked about agency, about buyer agency. And their eyes lit up. They went, we didn't know any of this stuff. You know? I says, have you talked with any realtors before? They said, well, yeah, actually, we put an offer in on a house. I said, really? He said, yeah, 2 weeks ago. I said, and do you have the contract? Oh, no, we don't have anything. You don't have the contract? No. So I went, well, somebody wasn't doing their job.
That's exactly right.
Yep.
If they didn't explain this to you and you did not fully understand that you were working with the listing. I said, were they the listing? He says, yeah. I said, oh, okay. So we proceeded and started looking at homes. about 2 weeks later, then they get a call from this agent. And he says, the house you put the offer in is back on the market again because they wrote the offer and the owner took the other offer.
Okay.
Okay? So you were out. So 2 weeks later, he calls them on a Sunday morning and says, the house is back on the market now. You want me to resubmit your offer? Well, they had already talked with me, and they says, well, we need to call Gary Rossignol because he's our agent now. He says, what, do you want to buy the house or not? He says, yeah, we do, but we need to talk to our agent. So he called me right away. And I says, well, if you put the offer in with them, I have to encourage you to go back and let him submit this. Says, we don't want to work with him because, first of all, we don't have anything. I says, well, how could he resubmit an offer that is a dead offer and you don't even have copies of? He says, yeah, we're not real comfortable with that. So we proceeded. I showed the house to them, and they wrote a really nice letter. And you read the letter.
I saw it, yeah.
It addresses all the points because this agent didn't want to recognize me as the buyer agent. He'd allow me to do the contract, but he says, so you want to come in and take all my commission? I says, no, I don't want all your commission. First of all, I don't want your commission. I want my commission. So they wrote this letter, and I sent this in with the contract.
Oh, okay.
And his tune changed.
I bet it did.
Yeah. So
having read the letter,
it's about professionalism,
sure,
doing what's right, and we're going to talk about that later on in the show.
Sure.
I just like to share that little story. So if you're looking for a house anywhere in Coleraine, Fairfield, or Sycamore Township, you're going to go to my website, PriceLaneHomes.com. There you can download my amazing 39-step system to get your home sold fast and for top dollar, and you can look up any property that's for sale throughout the entire city. Now, last week I had some great guests, and you know Lori Leonard.
Yes, I do.
She's in your office?
She's in our company.
Comey and Shepherd office.
Right.
They do have, and they're the Realtors with Heart is a great committee. It's the only nonprofit organization committee we have at the board, and they're trying to get the AED machines, and they're also offering CPR training. It's like $10, and everybody should take CPR training.
Absolutely.
And you should understand how to use the AED machines. So actually later today at Jay McLaughlin's from 10:30 to 3:30, everything that they sell, portion will go to Realtors with a Heart. That's
oh, really?
Today. Yeah. So if you want to buy any kind of clothing at all, go to Jay McLaughlin's, and a portion of what you spend will go to the Realtor with Hearts. And then this Wednesday, there will be a training at Michael Wallett's Star One Western Hills office from 2 to 4:30. That's on Glenway Avenue. And, and that'll be for this CPR training. $10 should be there.
Yep.
So... okay, my guests, I have Karen Schlosser. You are broker.
Sales manager.
You're sales manager. You're a teacher.
I am.
Yes, you are.
By accident.
You're the head of the Professional Standards Committee.
I am.
Which I admire you. That is a large job. Huge job.
It's
one
fun.
of the most important committees we have at the Board of Realtors.
It probably is, and nobody realizes it, but it's a fun group. And
we have a great group, though, don't we?
We do.
Boy, did we break out with some ideas at the last meeting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
So you're with Comey and Shepherd. There's a lot of good companies. Of course, Dave and I think Berkshire Hathaway is the best in the city. So second best is Comey and Shepherd. Why? Defend that one.
Defend that one. Well, I don't have to defend anything. But anyway, I do work for Comey and Shepherd. A company is a group of people that come together and have a business philosophy. And I'm sure our business philosophies are very similar. We just happen to work under different roofs. Our job...
And the buyers and sellers, they don't hire the company.
Oh, no. They hire individuals.
Right.
And that's what I remind agents all the time. It matters not what company you're with. It matters what you do and how you perform. That's why people hire you. They want to hire a professional. They expect professionalism. And it doesn't matter what roof you're under. You can do it under any roof.
Right.
It's just a personal choice as to which company that you choose to work for.
Right, right. So what's your what's the favorite part of your job?
favorite part of my job is working with agents, which is what I do day in and day out. I'm unique in the fact that as a sales manager, I don't manage the office. I get to work with agents all day long. I'm the point person when an agent has a question about contracts, a situation, how do I proceed, and vicarious positions that they sometimes find themselves in. I oversee all of the training. I don't deliver it because I physically can't do all of that, but I oversee all the training of new agents, experienced agents, and everything else. I'm also the author of Karen's Tips, and I know you're on my tip list, but I write that.
Great stuff, too, every day.
Don't you love it?
It's unbelievable. It's great.
That is probably my favorite part of my job, is writing my tip for the day, because I'm always looking for something that will be of interest, that will appeal to realtors. Sometimes it's a technical thing. Sometimes it's a trend in the market. Sometimes it's a little more fun. But it's interesting because I even have my clients on my tips list. And I was with one of my clients last night, and he commented, he said, I love getting your tips because I'm always trying to figure out, even though I'm not in the real estate business, how this can work in my life.
Right.
So.
David,
That's terrific. That is.
Dave,
Sure.
why Berkshire Hathaway? I mean, we just changed. We were Prudential, and we had a choice. We didn't have to switch to Berkshire Hathaway, or did we?
No, we could have stayed Prudential. But, the national network really has changed over to Berkshire Hathaway. And just to sort of address Karen's, Comey & Shepard's a great company. I think there's two approaches. There's the local company that does quality work, and then there's the national brand. Of course, Berkshire Hathaway is a national brand. We like to be part of the national network. We like to bring buyers and sellers together from all over the world, and being part of that national network helps to do that. We also like the support we get. With national scale, you're able to deliver national technology, national training. We have a national trainer coming in next week for our group. So two different philosophies, but I think, certainly both great companies. And, I don't think it's the Comey and the Shepards and the Berkshire Hathaways that the clients have to worry about. I think it's the less reputable brokerages out there that maybe don't care as much about client service and are worried more about their commissions or about the sales. And, it's programs like this that I think help educate the clients and the consumers. You mentioned agency. Most clients don't understand agency going into the transaction, and explaining that up front and talking about that relationship with the agent's critical. And that's a red flag if the agent doesn't do that right away.
And you know what? A lot of agents don't understand agency. And when we come back after this break, we're going to tackle that.
That's right.
You're listening to the Rock and Roll Real Estate Hour on 1480 WDJO Cincinnati.
Doug the Computer Guy from Dr. Micro, Sundays from 10 to 11 on Oldies 1480 WDJO.
Get on. Let's rock the house.
We're rocking the house this morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Gary Rossignol. I'm with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Professional Realty, better known as Cincinnati's rock and roll real estate agent, and I'll tell you why in a little bit. But we have a great couple of great guests in the studio this morning. I have Dave Mussari. He's my broker owner of Berkshire Hathaway, and we have Karen Schlosser, who is the sales manager for Comey and Shepard. All the Comey and Shepards, or just the one office?
The one I'm of the Wolford division.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, great. Which is a huge division.
I have 200 agents in my office alone.
Wow, that's got to keep you busy.
It does.
What we didn't
You get a few phone calls, don't you?
I'm sure.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite part of your job, Dave?
It's similar to Karen's. I enjoy working with the agents. It's also the most challenging part. This can be a difficult business at times. There's a lot of challenging things out there with the transactions, but I enjoy working with the agents, hands-on with the agents, and.
You come into the business. Your forte is commercial.
Correct.
So, you don't have a lot of experience in the residential side, or do you?
I'm getting more every day.
Okay.
But brokerage is
baptism by fire.
Exactly. Thank you. Brokerage obviously has some commonality across commercial and residential. You mentioned agency before. With my background in commercial, on the buyer's side, we set up buyer's agency with almost every transaction. So it's a little different than on the residential side, where that buyer agency isn't quite as clear. We have buyer agency agreements with clients when we're looking for space for them or to find leasing for them. So we're trying to sort of translate that over and get that dialed in a little bit more on the residential side. And there's stuff that crosses over the other way. So it's an interesting place to be.
And my question is, both of you, Dave and Karen, When we list a house, we have an exclusive right to sell contract, which is a bona fide legal document which says the seller can't list with another broker, and we owe them certain fiduciary responsibilities,
Sure.
and we also owe them a certain level of service. Why don't we have the same level of commitment to buyers with buyer agency contracts?
It's a great question, because it would begin with the agents promoting that to buyers, and that is just not something that has happened in this market. I'm sure for a variety of reasons, but probably the biggest one is most agents would not know how to explain an exclusive buyer agency
Well, we need
agreement.
to change that.
Well, that's through the education and training and more education and more training, but it's also a mindset. Because part of that exclusive buyer agency agreement states that the buyer will pay the commission. And
Sure.
that is not the mindset of most buyers in this market. They have grown up and have gotten used to the fact that sellers, quote, pay the commission. The reality is there wouldn't be a commission payable if there wasn't a buyer.
Right.
So which comes first, the chicken or the egg?
And the buyer wouldn't be paying a commission if there weren't a seller there. to sell a house.
Correct.
So,
But the seller typically comes on the market first and says, hey, I want to sell my house. And they're the ones who say, sell my house, I'll pay you. And the buyers are going, okay, I'll buy your house, but I'm not going to pay anybody.
right.
But the reality is they are when they're coming to bring their funds to closing.
That's right. The commission comes out of the sales price.
The commission comes out of the sales price. So again, which comes first? Is it the buyer or the seller?
And the buyer's bringing all the money to the transaction.
Yes, because the seller wouldn't have. although, if you read in the news, the Realtor news the other day, there was a gentleman, and I'm trying to remember where his house is, but he offered his house in trade for an i6, the new iPhone.
iPhone 6.
Oh, okay.
iPhone 6, and he got it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So now
There might be some back taxes on that house. Or
there
something.
are.
Yeah.
There are some. Dave, very very smart man. Yeah, there are some $6,000 worth of back taxes. So, but the buyer got a house that, according to Zillow, one of our favorite people or entities, they actually valued the home for about $48,000. So it was reported that the buyer lived down the street. It's a neighbor who bought it for less than $1,000 and gave him the iPhone. Is that funny? So,
If I can just sort of echo the agency issue, and I think it's an important issue because it really is something that consumers need to know. Again, the way we do this on the commercial side, and we're translating this over, is that we don't obligate the buyers to pay the commission. We just establish agency through an agency agreement. The commission is still out there, paid by the seller. Again, it typically comes out of the buyer's funds.
right.
But it creates that fiduciary responsibility between the agent and the buyer. So it really is a consumer-friendly process. It makes that agent obligated from a fiduciary standpoint and accountability and loyalty and all the other responsibilities we have as realtors to that buyer. So if you explain it properly, it really is something that's very beneficial to that buyer. And then again, of course, it protects the agent that buyer will work exclusively with them, and their time and effort will hopefully eventually lead to a transaction so they can be compensated. So it really is a win-win. I think it's just tradition, Karen, that
Absolutely.
traditionally in this market it hasn't happened on the residential side.
Right.
And we're going to move towards it more often for our company. I think some of the other companies will do it as well. It happens in other parts of the country, and it's a better system. It ties everybody sort of into this contractual agency relationship, which is important for
Yeah.
everybody.
I sit with for sale by owners quite often. And, when I bring out the consumer guide to agency relationships and explain that to them, they had never seen that before, and they have interviewed 3 or 4 other agents already. Isn't this supposed to be, isn't Real Estate 101, our laws say that we must disclose this, we must present this upon first meeting?
Well, in fact, that was one of the tips I wrote recently. Is the consumer guide is on the first date.
That's right.
Right.
And that was the title of my tip. And basically it was to say, on the first date, the first time you meet that buyer, or the first time you meet that seller, you're supposed to be producing that consumer guide that explains what your company policy is on agency. And I know that I've done that every time I've met with a buyer, every time I've met with a seller, and I even circle things on the consumer guide to say, now this is who I am. Now this is what I could be depending on the circumstances, and here are the circumstances. It's so easy to explain.
I use this as the lead-in to my whole presentation, and
Sure.
this is how we work.
That's and I do the very same thing, because to me it is the first thing on the first date,
Right.
to describe what that is.
And we commit to follow their lawful instructions, be loyal to them,
Absolutely.
to promote their best interest.
Right.
And then if they hire me and I come into them 2 weeks later with a offer from a buyer that I'm representing, and I say, well, now I can't really follow your lawful instructions 100%. I can't promote your best interest 100% because I have another client that wants to buy your house for a lot less than what you want to sell it for.
Right.
And I'm obligated to them too. How would you feel about that, Mr. and Mrs. Seller? You know, I don't like that at all. I says, good, because I don't either. I will never be a dual agent for you.
Well, and that's funny you say that, because that is my part of my presentation too. Because although
that sets us different than everyone out there.
it probably does, but as a sales manager, I don't have time to sell a lot of real estate, but I do. I still work with friends and family and referrals, and that's part of my presentation when I work with sellers, is I'm not going to be a dual agent. Although I did have a seller one time argue with me and say, no, I want you to be a dual agent because I trust you. And I'd rather be dealing with you on both sides, even though they knew that I was going to be limited as to what I was going to be doing. And of course, what did I become? A dual agent, because that's
Following
here
their
comes
lawful
the buyer.
instructions,
And but it was interesting because most of my sellers agree with me. They don't want me to represent a buyer on their property. And it makes it a whole lot easier for me to negotiate the deal.
Yeah, dual agency can get tricky. There's
It
no doubt
is.
about it. But
It
it's
is.
inevitable sometimes, like your situation.
It
where,
did, and it worked out.
Yep.
Everybody was happy.
Yeah.
It takes a professional to handle that and manage it,
Right.
because then you really are more neutral in the transaction.
But you know, the customers and clients out there, they don't understand, and they don't want to understand all that stuff.
No, because all they want to do, they want to sell their house,
Or they
want
wanna
to
buy
a
a
house. And I get that.
Whatever it takes.
And I always say nobody cares about agency until something happens that makes them unhappy. I call them crabby. When they become crabby, then all of a sudden agency becomes important to them.
Yeah.
And it should have been important all along, but they're just looking at the end goal. Sell my house, buy a house. That's it.
She does list some houses because last year she was representing a seller, and I had a buyer, a couple. It was a relocation, and we had some training on relocation. I think I stood up and made that point clear to everyone that was in our training, because I learned the hard way. Now, I do make mistakes. That was my one mistake last year. It was almost a very
Sorry about that, Gary.
but you taught me a good lesson.
Good thing Karen was there. to fix
Oh,
that
yeah,
for you.
yeah.
Thanks, Karen.
But she did her job and ticked me off at first, because I had been trained by osmosis, by tradition, with relocation. The seller never signs anything. And if you're working on a transaction in the weekend and corporate isn't open to sign off on a contract, you've got an open deal until they sign off on it.
That's right.
And on the phone, you said, I think we've got a deal.
I did.
And I turned to my buyer and says, they took it. We got it. So they scheduled their inspections, made the appointment with the and they're ready to move. And this was Sunday afternoon. She called and says, we're in a multiple offer. I says, what do you mean a multiple offer? What happened to, we got a deal? She says, no, well, I think we've got a deal. Corporate hasn't signed off on it yet.
That's right. Ouch.
Yeah,
That's a tricky
really.
one.
Yep.
So I had to call my buyer and says, uh-oh, and they lost.
Yep.
Yeah, they lost.
But they had the opportunity to come back.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's one of those circumstances, because it doesn't just happen with relocation.
Right.
It can happen with a short sale, particularly a short
Bank
sale, bank-owned properties.
Well, we don't want to get into that one today.
That can be a very tricky situation.
yeah.
But the same can happen when a buyer has an offer, a counter offer, for instance, in front of them with from a seller, and the buyer decides that they're going to counter. As soon as they counter, they've just lost the opportunity
Yep.
to buy that house.
Any little thing, just
Yep.
a date, you change anything.
Anything.
Oh, let's throw in the curtains. We got
Yep.
a counter offer. Can't
Yep.
do that.
Yep.
More stuff with Dave and Karen right after this message. You're listening to the Rock and Roll Real Estate Hour on 1480 WDJO Cincinnati.
This old house ain't got nothing to lose. I've seen it all for
To who is this guy that says he's Dave Mussari? How do I know it's Dave? I need to verify who it is. Who am I showing the property to? Personally, I work with friends and family, so it's rare for me to ever get a phone call other than a referral. But typically, they've already been vetted by my friend or family or past client.
But
who's
you are
referred-
sales manager over 200 agents
Correct.
who are out there doing this every day.
Right.
It's really, and it's all of our obligation.
But that's
behind this
I tell my
microphone.
agents they need to slow down.
It's my obligation behind this microphone to
Yeah.
let the general public know.
Right.
If you call us in the future
Mm-hmm.
and we try and get more information, we want to meet you in the office first.
Mm-hmm.
The veteran buyer, I mean, he's a veteran. He came pre-approved, first-time buyer. I
Mhm.
fell for him. I said, thank you for your service, first of all. He said, oh, you're welcome.
Mm-hmm.
But no, in my office.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I wrote a tip about that too, and it was called "Don't Know Them, Don't Show Them."
Mm-hmm.
And basically, the tip outlined, you really need to get to know who this caller is before you start going to show them. In fact, I recited in that tip that I had recently helped a client who had sold the big family home and wanted to move into an apartment. And so I went with her to help her find an apartment because she had never done that before. Every apartment complex we went to required us to produce a photo ID. They took the ID, they copied the ID. Every one of them had a sign in their lobby when you walked into their management office that said, photo ID required before viewing apartment. So it was just standard practice. Why isn't it standard practice in our business?
And I've got a scanner on my phone. I can scan.
I can scan your phone. Yeah.
That's what we need to do. We need to utilize the technology to help cure this.
And
issue,
Dave,
because it's
we-
the nature of our business.
we
I mean,
need-
you're showing houses to strangers in essence.
We
even-
need to have an hour and a half, 2-hour training on safety and it should be mandatory to all our agents.
Yeah,
And
we have
should-
some new stuff we're rolling out. There's some new great apps out there for agent safety. I like the driver's license or ID idea because you can take a picture of it and scan it back to the office, and at least
Exactly.
the office will know your whereabouts.
Yep.
We've used the buddy system for years, but really the technology can take it to the next level where you really have some protection. You could even be webcamming when you're showing the house to somebody that you don't
Absolutely.
know the
But
entire time, so you're
with
kind
all
of being
with
watched.
all the apps and all this the upfront trying to be safe, you still end up with situations where I was showing a house. It was a house in Landon, a nice house. The instructions were, and my assistants set it all up. We had 4 houses to look at. This was third on the list. I get there and went, front door will be unlocked.
Mm.
That's right.
My buyer is a single lady. She goes, what? I said, yeah. I said, I just want to let you know the front door has been unlocked all morning. She says, I'm not going in that house.
Mm.
You go in first.
That's a great point. There's safety issues beyond the risk of the buyer potentially doing you
Sure.
harm. There's
And
safety
I
issues
met
out
a
there as
I
well.
met a gentleman at a meeting, a networking group, Rob Judy, who's an ex police officer, and he does conceal and carry. And I was just curious. I wanted to know, what is my rights as a human being? What is my rights as a realtor? What is my if I get into situations? So I took the course, traded him. He was on my show. Very interesting. Great. I'm going to have him back on too. And I learned a lot about safety, and I have my conceal and carry.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's me.
There are several agents in my office who also have conceal and carry.
Mm-hmm.
That's not my style, but if you're doing it the right way, that's fine. Again, I just say slow down. Think about, the questions that you need to ask the person. You need to ask the same questions of everybody. If you're going to, and that's the other part of that, is you need to make sure that if I'm asking certain people for their driver's license, I need to ask everybody for their driver's license.
Consistent with
So I'm staying consistent with what I'm doing.
Right.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So, we have apps, but they're just, you should ask this, what are the 3 most important questions to ask a potential buyer?
Their name, contact information. Well, you'd
Yeah.
be surprised how many people don't ask for their name. You want to see the house? Okay.
Oh, no.
But their name, their contact information, and just something about, how'd you find the house? How long have you been looking? Have you been
I always like to
working with
find,
somebody else?
have they ever bought a house before?
Absolutely.
And do they have you got your financing in order?
And I was going to say that's usually the next thing that I want to know is, have you talked with a lender? How do you intend to purchase the home?
Because I don't care. They may think that their finances are okay. We're fine. But here they've got horrible credit, or they have liens, and you just never know.
Right.
And you need to get into.
I think that's another element about the financing, because in the situation with Beverly, the buyer was going to pay cash, and I think all too often in our business, agents hear the word cash and they turn off their brain as to what else they need to know about that person. Because I need verification that you've got the cash just as much as I need verification you can get a loan.
And those
mortgage.
tendering the cash think that their cash is more valuable than a deal with financing.
Absolutely.
This is why I offer $10,000 less than an offer I don't take, but it's cash.
Right. Cash is king in their mind.
But when this day is said and done, when they go and cash the check, it's $10,000 more than what you're offering.
I think that's a byproduct of the tough market we came in. When it was harder to get financing, and cash truly was king for a period of about 3 or 4 years there. I think we've moved out of that now, and financing is more readily available. But during those times, when you had cash, it was much more certain that deal was going to close. There was not financing contingencies out
Great
there.
discussions, guys. We need to go away for our last break. When we come back, more with the Rock and Roll Real Estate Hour on 1480 WDJO Cincinnati.
I've had hearing aids before, and they all ended up going.
Respected names in business now in real estate. Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Professional Realty. Find a local agent at ohiohomesandrealestate.com. Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Professional Realty is an independently owned and operated franchisee of BHH Affiliate LLC.
Get on. Let's rock the house.
We're back, ladies and gentlemen. You've been listening to the Rock and Roll Real Estate Hour on 1480 WDJO Cincinnati. My name is Gary Rossignol, and I'm with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Professional Realty. I'm with you every Saturday morning from 9 until 10 o'clock, and we've just had a great show. Failed to mention that I'm called Rock and Roll Real Estate Agent because I play with the greatest classic rock band in Cincinnati called Bluestone Ivory. You'll be able to see us next Friday, October 17th at Memories Supper Club in Harrison, Ohio. The following Saturday, October 25th, we'll be at Jim and Jack's on the River. And Halloween night, I just got this wrapped up. We're going to be at the Marriott Riverview in Covington
Fantastic.
from
Very
8
cool.
until midnight. It's an open dance, $10 a person. And we will hopefully have members of the Dragonfly Foundation there to do the Split the Pot. Is that okay, Rhea?
Absolutely. We just have to coordinate it with our volunteers. I didn't realize that. But, yeah, just give me the details, and we'll be happy to get someone there.
And that voice is Rhea Davidson, one of the co-founders of the Dragonfly Foundation. And this particular dance is where we met you about 4 years ago.
Yeah, it's been a long time, hasn't it?
It has been. It has been. And you were introduced to me by somebody in our office. I forget who that was, actually.
I can't remember either.
Somebody was in our office, introduced you and me, and I says, well, why don't you come down and do Split the Pot? And of course, our patrons that were there at the dance, I think you raised $120 or something like that, and the split was like 60-some bucks. And he says, oh, here, keep it all. I think they all do that now, don't they?
Yeah, a lot of them do, and it's been just wonderful. And Gary, how much Play-Doh we can buy for $120.
Oh, yeah. But we're going to put a little twist on this Split the Pot, Rhea. We won't tell them, but we're going to do Split the Pot, and you're going to keep the whole pot.
Oh. Well, we'll see. We'll make sure that, if someone wants it or needs it, we're happy to do whatever. But it's so wonderful anytime someone wants to help us.
Yeah, but we'll figure out a few other ways to get some money for you guys on that Friday night. So what's happening at the landing? I know you got some big things coming up here soon.
Well, and you know what? We've got our gala coming up, and we've been getting ready for Christmas, believe it or not.
The gala is in February.
The gala's in
14th.
February, right?
We'll be there.
Yeah, I'm so excited about that. as always, you guys have just been so phenomenal, and your music just rocks the house, as you say. But we've been really trying to get ready for Christmas. Christmas and the holidays is a big deal for us. And a lot of people don't know the lengths that we go to take care of our families during that time. We adopt families that are financially struggling. Last year we did 24 families, thanks to the help of wonderful and generous supporters. We send out gift cards to every patient, no matter where they live, so all around the country and around the world. About $25 to $35, depending on what types of monetary gift cards we have. And then we also, 2 days before Christmas happens, we get a list of patients that are in the hospital, along with what they want for Christmas and also what their siblings want for Christmas. So we get them, their Christmas list for the holidays. So it's a busy time for us, and we need all the help we can get.
Yeah, we're going to have our annual Christmas party down here on the Rock and Roll Real Estate Hour as well.
Yeah, you just need to let me know the date so we can put it on the calendar.
Yep, I'll be able to tell that to you here in just a moment. Actually, I've got it on the calendar, but that'll be December the 20th.
Great.
So
I'll put it on the calendar.
Yep. So we'll get some families down here. I know Santa will stop by, and we'll have all our sponsors down here, and we'll take care of all the kids and their families.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
That's so great of you guys to do that.
So what's the next thing coming up? You need something from my listeners other than just some money?
Well, we need gift cards, like I said, and we need people to tell us if they're willing to adopt families, for the holidays, if they're willing to purchase items that might be on a wish list for a family. Those are, the biggest things for us right now.
Okay, so I have I got a manager from Comey & Shepherd in here, Karen Schlosser. You can take that idea back to your office, and we can go to all our offices.
Absolutely,
right?
yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So
and
if we have a group of folks that want to adopt a couple families, what do they need to do? Just call you at the landing?
Yeah, they just let us know, and we'll put them down on a list and try to identify, what their parameters are, how much they want, and if they want to help support. And sometimes some people will say, oh, I have a budget limit of $100. Well, then we might pair them up with another sponsor or two just to be able to meet the needs of, not just the patients, but also the siblings and in some cases the families, because we have some that are really in dire situations. I already know right now that there's one family that all they want for Christmas are clothes for the kids and shoes for the kids. And that's not even taking into account any fun things that they would want they're just looking for food, really,
right.
And basic needs. So, we'll try to figure out exactly, what their parameters are. We try to maintain our families in anonymity, just because. And I was explaining this to someone the other day when they came in. They came in wanting to support us, but they're like, I want to know what their disease is, I want to know their prognosis, and I want to know, what their income is, but really the disease and prognosis. And I'm like, you know what? That's information that you as a parent, if it were your situation, you wouldn't want the world to know.
No.
You wouldn't go ask someone what's your prognosis and have them describe for you the chance of something happening.
It's called giving.
It is. And our families, to have to accept something from us or from anyone, it shatters a piece of you.
Sure.
To have to be in the position where you can't take care of your family's basic needs, much less the extra stuff. And to look in the eyes of these families, is already difficult enough without me having to go to them and say, I have a supporter who wants to know, It's incredibly heart-wrenching. It really is. And our families are not in a zoo, and that's really kind of the feeling that I was left with.
All right. Well, that's our mission this week.
Absolutely.
We got 3 top people in here. We're going to put our heads together and come up with an idea for you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You bet.
I really appreciate it.
Rhea, God bless you. Thanks for calling in. We will talk to you next week, and I'll be in touch with you the next couple days.
Fantastic. Thanks.
All right. Thank you.
Take care, Rhea.
All right.
Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
you want to help them right now, you can text the word JOY to 80100 or TDF to 80100. That'll put $5 or $10 respectively into their account, charged to your phone. So that's simple. Let's see. Next week, I forgot to mention Calvin Geyer. He's a loan officer with First Financial Bank. He'll be my guest.
Terrific.
They got some terrific programs at that bank. You ever use First Financial?
They're actually our business partner.
Are they? Okay. Ours as
Us
well.
too.
So we got
How about
something
that?
else in common. So we're married at the hip.
There you go.
And we're all wearing black today, too.
And we're all
Have you
wearing
noticed
black
that?
today.
Coming up next is Tony Bender and Dane Donovan and the Car Tech Show. If you have a problem with your vehicle, stay tuned. They guarantee they're going to fix it over the radio. Anyhow, we'll see how that works out. That should be pretty good. Karen, thank you. You're always a terrific guest. We got to do this more often.
Oh, thank you, Gary.
Dave, you are equally. She's prettier, but you are.
Oh, for heaven's sake, now stop
you
that.
Are a Jim.
Thank you, Gary. I love being here. And thank you for what you do.
You both have a face for radio. We'll have to do this again. By the way, if you missed any of the past shows, you can go to my website, PricelineHomes.com. Or rockandrollrealestateagent.com, and the podcasts are all on there. You can go back and listen to any show you want to. They are also on iTunes. They're all uploaded to iTunes. So you can go to iTunes, the Rock and Roll Real Estate Hour, and you can listen to any of the shows that you want to. We ready to go, Kevin? We're ready to go. This is an all-time favorite of Carol Schilling's, Diane Sandy's, Teresa, Steve, and Cheryl's. This is a rock and roll song originally recorded by Bobby Day and popularized by Thurston Harris in 1957. It was also performed by Dave Clark 5, Jackson 5, Huey Lewis and the News, Doobie Brothers. This is Bluestone Ivory's live version of Itty Bitty Pretty One.
Whoa, let me sing. Whoa, hey, hey, whoa, hey, whoa, little bitty pretty one, come on, talk to me. Let me, one, come on, sit at my knee. Yeah. Bring it up. Whoa, 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 hey, whoa, 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 hey, whoa, 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 little bitty pretty one, come on, talk to me. Let me, come on, sit at my knee. Wow, that's some cushion. Little bitty pretty.
Wow, thank you for tuning in to the Rock and Roll Real Estate Hour, starring yours truly, Gary Rossignol. For all your real estate needs, you can reach me at 513-777-2402 or go to my website, which is rockandrollrealestateagent.com. I'd like to thank my regular major sponsors for making this show possible: Bettina Niehaus and Art Weber of Wooden Lamping, the musical insurance guy, Gary Rasmussen of Farmers Insurance, Bob Pape with Interlink Mortgage Services, Mike McCormick, the Cincy Tax Coach, Lou Amsoff of Title Screens, Russell Kling with West Banco, Pete McCrary, the Junk King, and Ed Hensley of First Financial Bank. I would also like to thank Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Professional Realty, my broker Dave Mussari, and Bob Daniel, my manager. A special thank you to WDJO 1480 Cincinnati, Jerry Welch, station manager Gary Stevens, and my producer Kevin Kinney. A real big thank you to all my clients, friends, family, and fans of Bluestone Ivory, and especially my wife, Mary Jo. Until next week, keep on knocking on my rockin' houses. So long for now.